Welcome everyone to the 2021 Virtual Compassion in Action Healthcare Conference. I'm Casey Kudesia, Member Experience Advisor at the Schwartz Center. Thank you for joining us for this special event, an afternoon meditation with our friends at Mindful. Please join me in welcoming Barry Boyce, founding editor of Mindful Magazine and mindful.org. Barry, thank you so much for doing this with us today. I'll pass it off to you.
Hi, folks. So happy to be here with you, both the people who are here live and those of you watching this recorded in the future. Mindful Magazine started in 2013. The website mindful.org started a little sooner than that. And we're the leading publication and website in the world of secular mindfulness, or mindfulness that's for anyone unrelated to a religious practice, or it could be related to a religious practice. So I've worked with a lot of healthcare professionals over the years. Several of them are my close relatives. And I have an immeasurable amount of respect for the work that you do. And I know that a number of nurses and doctors and other healthcare professionals, EMTs and other first responders, people in uniformed service, have been applying mindfulness and compassion practices effectively for a few years in the front lines. So at Mindful, we talk about two kinds of practice, two kinds of mindfulness practice: dedicated practice and integrated practice. Dedicated practice refers to setting aside a period of time, perhaps in the morning or in the evening or at bedtime, where you meditate for a specific period of time, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it might be. And you set a timer, and I'm going to sit down now and practice meditation. Integrated practice refers to practices that are integrated into your day and that emerge generally during little gaps that open up in your day. And we're talking about tiny little gaps. I know that in healthcare, the gaps that open up are microscopic at times. So today, I'm going to introduce some integrated practices that don't take long at all to do and can be helpful in the heat of the moment. So in addition to an integrated practice being used during some kind of gap that you find, they can be used when you find yourself in particularly high stress situation. You can feel like the stress is beginning to get to you and affecting your focus and your general well-being. Mindfulness is, of course, I want to be clear, not the only way to deal with stress. It's one of many, many tools, including all the obvious ones: getting as good a sleep as you can, nutrition, exercise, and a good work environment. So mindfulness is not some kind of magic bullet that can make up for, an overly stressful environment that needs some attention. However, it can help with stress in the moment without question. So one of the things about people who work in healthcare or in any other kind of first responder situation is that you are obviously more exposed to emergent situations. So your adrenaline spikes frequently. So it goes up and you have high energy and the incredible power of the central nervous system to bring strength, energy, and focus to an emergent situation. But it comes at a cost. The average person doesn't, who's not in these kind of positions, doesn't have their adrenaline spiking frequently like this. So it's a special case. And it's helpful to be able to down-regulate as often as possible to decrease the load on the central nervous system. So a short mindfulness practice involving taking a few breaths might even remind one to take care of yourself in a way that's helpful that you might not have remembered to do if you didn't take this moment to purposefully pause. So for example, you might do a few breaths and pause and remember to drink some water or whatever it might be. So the practice I'm going to introduce is called a 3 breaths practice. It is a combination of a mindfulness practice and a relaxation practice. Regular mindfulness practice, strictly speaking, is not a relaxation practice. It's a practice of paying attention and noticing what's going on with our mind and coming back to our body and our sensations. So the classic mindfulness practice, as you may have heard, is you sit and you pay attention to your breath as it goes in and out. And you're not purposefully breathing in any particular way when you're doing that kind of practice. You simply are breathing. You're breathing naturally because you're alive. And you notice your thoughts, you touch them gently, and you come back to the breath. You do that repeatedly, and the idea is that you develop some more focus and the connection with your body and mind and senses in the moment. In this case, in the 3 breaths practice, we're consciously taking breaths, deep breaths, in a particular way, and we benefit from the physiological response of deep breathing to create some relaxation. And in addition, there's the mindfulness element of paying attention. So the first 3 breaths practice I want to introduce is the basic 3 breaths practice. On the first breath, take a full breath in and out. On the first breath, we just notice the breath. Mindfully notice the breath, as opposed to whatever else is going on in our thoughts or around us. In the second breath, we notice any particular tension in our body. So your shoulders are tensed up like this, and we release it as much as possible. Let out the tension. Tension, release. Release the tension. And on the third breath, we ask ourselves, what's important now? Or some version of a question very similar to that. The purpose of that is to bring our attention to what's next, rather than our fears or distractions. I mean, let's say a colleague has just done something really rude or not, or not efficient or effective, or you might say stupid, or, and so you're irritated. And when we get irritated with folks, particularly in the workplace, we get worked up. So when you ask yourself what's important now, you might be able to realize, okay, what's important now is to let that go. You can come up later if there's something that needs to be resolved, and come back to what's next here. What do I need to do next? Because the energy spent on that political office politics drama, workplace politics drama, is requiring energy and focus. So what's important now on that third breath helps us to come back to where we decide we most need to be. It's from your perspective what's important now, what you think is important. So let's go through that. I'll guide us. So on the breath could be a 4 count, 1, 2, hold it to a 4 count, 1, 2, 3, 4, and let it out. We're just noticing the breath. Now the second one. Release any tension. Now the third one. What's important now? So that's a practice that takes less than a minute, and maybe you're off in the washroom or something, or just standing to the side, or sitting off to the side, or even in the middle of the action, and you just do that. And your eyes can be open or closed. So if you're self-conscious about it, which is fine, there's no need to be looking like you're doing anything special. You're just taking some breaths. All right, the second version of the 3 breaths practice, the first 2 are the same. First breath is about just noticing the breath, coming from wherever you are and just noticing the breath. Second, noticing tension and releasing it. And the third is, in this case, noticing if you have a particularly strong emotion, say anger or sadness or jealousy or fear or shame, whatever it might be, you notice it, acknowledge it, and let it go. Not necessarily letting it go permanently. Let's say it's anger about something that's wrong in the workplace. So you may return to that issue later on, but for the moment you're saying to the anger, okay, you're there. I'm going to let you go now. I appreciate you. I'm going to let you go. This can be sometimes more helpful than fighting it or juicing it up, particularly in the moment, in the heat of battle, so to speak. All right, so let's do the 3 breaths having to do with emotion. First breath. Just notice the breath. Second breath. Release any tension. Third breath. Notice an emotion you may have, a strong emotion. Notice it. Notice how it lands in your body, where it might be tensing up your body in a particular way or having you hold your body in a particular way. Notice the emotion and let it go. In that practice, you're not trying to deny the significance of the emotion or to try to reach an emotionless state, which isn't really possible or desirable for humans. Human life without emotion would be very uninteresting. It's just, for now, I'm going to leave it alone. That's why it's important to acknowledge it rather than push it away. If you try to push it away, it pushes harder back. But if it's pushing against you and you say, all right, later, then it can dissipate. So now the third of the three breaths practices has to do with what we call the inner critic. This is a voice inside your head that is often harder on you than you would be on anyone else in your life, maybe. I'm no good. I screw up. I hate myself. I hate this. I hate this about myself. I wish this. I wish that. It's altogether a kind of a very negative, really being down on yourself. All human beings have it. It's kind of our sense of attention to detail and judgment about what's good, what's bad, what's right or wrong, what's effective, what's ineffective. It's that kind of basic ability or quality gone wild. Like, ah. So it's the difference between a judgment, maybe that wasn't the right thing to do. I could learn from that. Yeah. And being judgmental. That wasn't the right thing to do. You stupid blankety blank. It's that added part that makes it from a simple judgment to being judgmental and really beating up on yourself and hurting your esteem. And also, again, as we've talked about in the previous three breaths practices, it uses up energy. Being distracted uses up energy. Being hyper-emotional uses up energy. And being subject to the inner critic and putting a lot of energy into that uses up energy. So I'm not saying that you can vanquish the difficult emotion in one fell swoop or get rid of the inner critic for good. Every one of these practices is just touches on something in the moment. And, you do it in the morning, maybe the inner critic is back 20 minutes later. Maybe you do just one breath, notice, let go. So we'll do this last of the three breaths practices. So first, take a nice, very deep in breath, all the way down into the belly. Let it fully out, and that you're noticing that whole breath. The next one, we're going to release tension. Full breath in. Releasing any tension. Finally, on this breath, we're going to notice the inner critic. Hello, thanks for coming. I got the message. We'll see you later. It's just a kind of very gentle. The same thing as with the emotion. If we try to push the inner critic, which is a part of ourselves, it kind of gains more energy and creates more tension, and there's a little fight going on. And maybe it turns into a little argument back and forth. In this case, in the mindfulness practice, we gently acknowledge and we let it go. So we have a few minutes left. If anyone would like to ask a question, you can put it in the Q&A or the chat. I'll give a couple of seconds here for that. And otherwise, I'm going to turn things back to Casey to wrap things up. Thank you very much for this time.
Thank you so much, Barry. What a nice way to break up our day. We'd also like to thank our national business members for their year-round support. Without them, the Compassion in Action Conference would not be possible. To our audience, thank you for joining us. We hope to see you this afternoon at the Corman Impact Honors to help celebrate this year's honorees, and again tomorrow for our final session of this year's conference. We'll hear from best-selling author Suleika Jaoud and closing remarks from our own Dr. Beth Lown. Thank you all and enjoy the rest of your day.